We are joined now by Miranda Devine, who deserves all the Pulitzers for her Hunter Biden New York Post expose surrounding that Hunter Biden laptop. I'll just tee you up here, Miranda. What did you think of Hunter Biden's performance and his suggestion that this was all political, that he was just a poor addict, that there's nothing that he's done wrong, and pretty significantly the moving of the goalpost that continues to occur, where now he's basically saying that his dad did not directly financially participate, whereas Joe Biden, back when he ran for president, said, I had absolutely nothing to do with Hunter's business. He made no money from China. There's a lot of shifting that has gone on here. What's your assessment of what you saw?
Yeah, the shifting of the goalposts is absolutely breathtaking, and it should have the media with their heads on swivels, but they just roll with the punches, most of them. Look, I thought it was a performance, just as you said, and of course, it's sort of been painted as being bold and brash and courageous, but there's really nothing courageous about flouting a congressional subpoena when you know that you've got your father's pardon power in your back pocket. There's just no consequences ever for Hunter. And I think that his decision today to hold that kind of woe is me press conference instead of turning up to the committee hearing where he was supposed to testify is just another example of the kind of privilege that the Bidens think that they're entitled to. They, talk about being above the law. They think they should have special treatment. Every other witness that's turned up to these House Oversight or Ways and Means or Judiciary Committee hearings, it's always been the same routine. You go and you sit for a closed-door deposition where the lawyers are able to, they have an hour each from both sides to ask really in-depth questions and get into granular detail rather than have the clown show that, I'm sorry, that's what the public hearings are up on Capitol Hill, where, Democrats and Republicans get 5 minutes each and both sides just grandstand. So that's why you have the closed-door deposition. And then after that, you can have the public hearing, if you like. But, Hunter Biden knows that, and so does his very expensive lawyer, Abby Lowell. So instead, they just chose to do this PR strategy, and Hunter just used the same cynical kind of tactic that his father has employed to great effect throughout his political career, and that is painting himself as an object of pity, playing on the public sympathy and empathy. And, you notice there, I think he mentioned his addiction, the struggles that he had in his recovery and so on, 3 or 4 times. And, as if, like he says, I was, irresponsible with my finances. But it's a lot more than that. And the top line, which you mentioned initially, was that he made a point of saying that there's no evidence that his father, the president, was financially involved in my business. And that is a very clever, lawyerly term of art there. Those words have been very carefully parsed. And that's because they know that there's just overwhelming evidence. And it comes from bank records. It comes from testimony from eyewitnesses. It comes from, iCloud warrants, search warrants of Hunter's iCloud, and so on, that Joe Biden met with Hunter Biden's overseas business partners that were giving him, millions of dollars to the tune so far that the Republicans and the IRS have figured out $24 million from China and Russia and Ukraine and so on. Joe Biden made himself available. He knew exactly what was happening, that he was being sold to the highest bidder. And, that's why I think Andy McCarthy and Jonathan Turley have made this very, important and salient point, which is that you don't need to prove that any money went into Joe Biden's bank accounts, even though James Comer has found, I think, $240,000 that did go from Jim Biden to Joe Biden's bank accounts, and some sort of money from Hunter's, which they dress up as a loan. But you don't have to prove that for bribery. which is part of the impeachment, one of the impeachment crimes, because the statute for bribery just says that you have to have provided services in your official capacity in return for benefits. And those benefits went to his immediate family, millions of dollars of benefits. And so Joe Biden appearing, meeting with Hunter's business partners, showing up on, Devon Archer said up to 20 phone calls. I'm told there are more on the speakerphone to speak to Hunter's business partners. The firing of the Ukrainian prosecutor, which is the big quid pro quo, which they're the most worried about. All of those things are benefits where Joe Biden used his official powers to benefit his son and his brother.
Speaking of Miranda Devine of the New York Post, and Miranda, I think that you're seeing this the way I am, which is that I don't believe Hunter Biden is worried at all about the legal consequences, at least in terms of incarceration and serving any kind of a prison sentence. We can see that one. But are the people in and around Biden world concerned that this is actually causing real political harm to Joe Biden? Or do they think they'll be able to pull the, Hunter's just an addict and his dad loves him and he had nothing to do with it card, and that will be enough?
Look, I think they have the media on their side, so they can manipulate and control the narrative in any way they like. I think the fact that you've had this week, some Democrats have come out, I think like Chris Murphy, and have effectively thrown Hunter under the bus and just said, look, he's troubled, he's done terrible things, blah, 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 but they just cauterize him from his father, and they will just. And I think there are a lot of people, you just look at the Washington Post comments under stories in the New York Times, who are very ready to forgive Joe Biden and to say his only crime was to be a loving father, and he's suffered enough tragedy in his life. They both have. Leave them alone, you cruel Republicans. And it's very cynical, and I guess that's what Joe Biden has done throughout his career. I mean, he's had 40-some-odd years to cement this image of himself as honest Joe, modest Joe, Joe who's, full of empathy because of the tragedies that the legitimate tragedies that he has suffered in his life. But he's leveraged that politically. The photo, I always think of this, when his wife and baby daughter were killed in a car crash at the very beginning of his Senate career, and Hunter and his brother Beau were just little tiny tots, and they were badly injured in the car accident. And so they're in hospital all bandaged up, and, little Juan, motherless boys lying on this hospital bed. And Joe Biden invited the photographers and the media scrum into that room to photograph him while he was being sworn in. And, that touched the heartstrings of two generations of American voters. And you can't help but feel empathy and sympathy when you see that photograph. But when you step back a little bit and think about it, Joe Biden's used that photograph in every election campaign since. And why didn't he get sworn in?
Get sworn in
corridor?
Anywhere other than his kid's hospital room is a very valid question.
Yeah. He could have, and they're right in the foreground. He's used that every time, and it's quite sickening. Even when he met with the family members of the 13 fallen service personnel who were killed in Kabul in his botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, you saw then how genuine his empathy is. Those parents were disgusted by his behavior. He's looking at his watch constantly as the bodies were being brought home. And then when he talked to them, they said that he just talked about himself. He just talked about his son, Beau, who died several years earlier of brain cancer, not from falling in the line of duty as their sons did, because of the incompetent president who was seeking a timeline that suited him politically to get out of Afghanistan. So I think that, over time, the mythology that Joe Biden has built around himself is crumbling. Honest Joe certainly is. Modest Joe. I mean, he has a a champagne lifestyle, and so does his entire family. And you can see that just from the indictment of Hunter Biden, where, the millions of dollars that he lavished on himself and his own indulgences, from hookers to, tens of thousands of dollars on clothes. I think it was $70,000 on new teeth, hotel rooms, lavish hotel rooms. Money is no object. And
do you feel, by the way, Miranda, last question for you, and thank you for the time here. Do you feel some measure of vindication that years now after your initial report, basically, if you look at that, those charges filed for tax evasion, issues with Hunter, all of it's now been proven to be true? I mean, I'm sure you read that complaint. A lot of it was reporting that you had previously put out there based on the laptop. Is that some form of personal validation now that it took 3 years, and anyone with a functional brain who'd read your reporting knew how valid it was, but now it's out there in the public domain and impossible to ignore?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, look, it was so obviously true, and anyone with half a brain and who was honest knew it was true from the start. And Joe Biden's continual lies and cover-up, the immense cover-up from the DOJ and the FBI and the CIA shows that they obviously have something to hide. And I don't think we've uncovered it all yet. So let's hope that, justice does come and accountability does come, and that the American people, especially that part of the public that is being gaslit by their media sources, that they actually come to their senses and realize the truth, and that something is done about this corruption in Washington. Because if the Biden family gets away with this outright corruption and selling out America's national security, then the next person that does it will be even worse.
Miranda Devine, everybody. Always fantastic, Miranda. Appreciate you being here.
Great to be with you guys.